Between school, your friends, and social media, answers are everywhere, but where can you find the truth? Welcome to the Well StudentCast. We're asking for a friend so you don't have to.
We back at the Well StudentCast. My name is Brynn, and I'm here with my friend Ka'eo.
What up, party people? We back.
So fun. We're back asking questions for a friend so you don't have to. And today we have a guest with us.
Hey, my name is Gabi. How's it going, y'all?
What's up,
What's
Gabby?
up,
I'm so
Gabi?
happy to be. I'm like so excited to be here.
We're excited that you're here. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, I do worship here at the Well. I serve in the middle school ministry. I'm a life group leader there. I went through like all of the student ministries, like the high school and middle school ministries, like as a student, as I was in school. And I did student leadership there. So
Whoa, student leadership alumni?
I don't think we've ever had one on here.
We have never. You're the first
Let's
alumni on the
go.
podcast.
I am so honored to be the first one.
Come
Thank
on
you
now.
for having
So
me.
fun. So what year of school are you in currently?
I'm currently in my second year at college.
Okay, very
Let's
cool.
go.
She
That's
goes to
pretty
6 p.m. She leads worship at our high school crew a lot.
awesome.
And I just almost spilled my
Yeah.
coffee. But
That's how
that
exciting.
would have been
That's
tragic.
so excited.
Yeah.
That's
Speaking
how
of
excited
spilled
you are.
drinks, you know where that happens at sometimes?
A lot of parties.
A lot of parties.
Yes,
I did not know how
I had
we were gonna get
I had a lot of like drinks spilled on me, and it's been tough out here.
It's tough.
That
It's
is rough.
awful. Okay, so but anyways, yeah, that actually brings us to our question, Brynn.
Yes, what is
We
it?
actually had a lot of friends put in like, hey, as a Christian, as a follower of Christ, can I go to parties?
Yeah.
Is it
yeah.
okay?
Oh my gosh, that is a really good question. And I feel like I hear that all the time.
Yeah.
And it's kind of that like, I don't know. You were talking about earlier, like we're called to be in the world but not of it.
Yes.
Can you explain that a little bit?
Well, the idea is just like as followers of Christ, like we are gonna go ahead and just culture's gonna intersect. We're like, okay, wow, there's like other people who don't believe just the same things that I do. But like my job isn't to like not like just like dissociate and be like, well, you guys are sinners and I am not.
Yeah.
Which is completely not true. We are all sinners.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
need Jesus. But then God calls us to like, yeah, you need to be in the world. You have to be of the world. You don't have to look like the world. You should look
Yeah.
like my followers.
It's not actually a light to be just in your Christian bubble,
No.
but there should be a difference.
Yeah, exactly. Like the really big marker for those who follow Christ is like how many people or who do not think the same way as you are like in your life.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're your community or your people, but just in your life.
Yeah,
you know.
for sure.
Anyways, but yeah, that's the question. That's where we're at.
Yeah.
So
Is
what do
it
we
wrong
say?
for Christians to go to parties? Gabby, just a quick question for you.
Wait, should we define what parties are? Is this like a birthday party?
This is a good question.
Okay, that
this
is
like,
really good.
Like,
Yeah.
is this a Christmas party? Like,
Okay.
what party?
Yeah. So what we're telling you guys actually, it's gonna be a really short episode. You can't go to any party ever.
Birthday parties? Never
No,
again.
No.
can't celebrate.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No.
Yeah. Did you know that Christianity means no fun?
No fun.
Oh, that's what people think, though.
Yes, we're
So
kidding.
sad.
We're not talking about like get-togethers with friends. We're talking about parties where there's alcohol and other things like it going on.
Yes,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Alcohol.
yeah, the alcohol. So that's the kind of party we're talking about. But I don't know. I'm just curious at this table. What is your guys' experience with the party scene? And like, I don't know, where have you drawn the line for yourself?
Yeah. So in high school, I like end of my junior year, into my senior year, especially since it was COVID, which that's not justification. That's just an explanation as to like it. Yeah. But
We understand.
yeah, I was definitely wrapped up in the party scene a bit. Yeah. And then I ended up like during high school, my line was not very clear at all. And then it was around like ending of my senior year where I was like, oh, okay, like this is the line. I think, where am I? Like, what should I be doing? So just in a similar situation of like, is it wrong to go to parties? Is it wrong? So yeah, I was there.
Yeah, for sure.
Dang.
But you
Yeah, for me, I'm pretty social butterfly, and so I had a lot of different friend groups growing up, and so yeah, I often went to these parties, and you know, it was tough because ultimately I just wanted acceptance. Like I wanted the cool kids to be like, yeah, okay, you're part of our crew, and honestly, it was very like affirming for me when like I was the only one from my friend group invited to like their parties.
absolutely.
You know.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, oh, you're not going? Oh, sorry, man, you didn't get the invite. And so, yeah, I went to a lot.
They're like, "Ka'eo, aren't you just their DD?"
Yeah, exactly. And the funny
You're like,
thing,
"But I'm there."
But I'm there.
I was invited.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, like, in case like people don't really know, it's like, yeah, I like found out on my 21st birthday that I'm actually like allergic to alcohol, and so like the Lord was kind and not letting me partake beforehand, but. I would still go to parties, but then be like, what am I doing here? Though I would ask that question.
Yeah. For me, I feel like I've had like a lot of different experiences, but I, up until senior year, was the girl that was like, if you go to a party, I am judging you. Like, you are awful.
Sinners.
Like, my friends would like hide from me if they went to a party. Like, they'd be like, no one tell Brynn. She gets so mad. And then end of my senior year, I just gone through a breakup and I ended up going to parties. And then I loved the like attention I would get from like Brynn's at a party like that.
so
I
real.
ate that up. But then I ended up kind of going down the party scene path and made a lot of decisions I regret. Just a lot of like, for me, a lot of brokenness and just like really hard consequences came from that season. And when I came back to the Lord, I remember kind of walking through a season where it's like, oh, I think I'm being really confusing to my friends by trying to live in both worlds. And so I drew my line at like, I do not go anymore. But I'm curious, like, what do you guys think? Gabi, for you, you're saying that towards the end of your senior year, you were like trying to figure out where your line was. What was key in that processing for you? Or like, what did that look like for you?
Yeah. It's interesting looking back. I definitely should have had the line of like, just don't go. Like, faith or not, there's going to be consequences. So just don't go. But I think the process of like figuring that out was kind of, we were kind of talking about this earlier, but it's like, why am I wanting to go to this party? Kind of like what you both were talking about of like, do I just want to feel accepted? Do I want to feel cool? Am I looking for security, validation? Like, what am I looking for here? So that was like the first step of like, oh yeah, I don't want to just go to like have fun. Like I'm going for a reason. And this reason's not honoring to the Lord or to myself or to anyone really.
Yeah.
And I think also in that process of kind of just being like you were saying of like, how is this affecting my witness? If like, if my ultimate goal right now is to be following the Lord and pursuing Christ and like be looking more like Christ every day, how is this helping? Is it helping or is it hurting? And ultimately it was hurting me in the end. So
Yeah. And so like, what did you do with that? How was that? Was it easy for you to recognize that? Or did that take a lot of like wrestling in that subject?
yeah, I think it took some wrestling, mainly because I was just trying to justify it for myself because
sure.
I was so in that scene where I was like, well, this is fun. I'm having a good time. Like I'm making friends. Wrong. But so it was hard for me to be like, it took my brain a second to be like, no, like this is really what you want. Like this is the correct way. That narrow path that's like harder to see.
Yeah.
Like that's the right path that you should be going on. So it was definitely a struggle.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned the idea of like witnessing to people, and something that I feel like I hear a lot in this conversation is like, well, but I'm called to be a light in the darkness.
Yeah.
Party scene's a dark place. Like,
Yeah.
is it wrong for me to go? And I think in the question of like, is it wrong for me to go? I'm not going to drink. Like, I'm not going to do the things, but I should go be a light. And so what do you guys say? What do you guys say to that?
Yeah.
I think that was definitely my reasoning for a long time. I was like, I'm not going to drink. I'm going to be a light. It'll be a good time. Like
I'm going to hold my friends accountable.
Even if I'm going by myself, like all my other people, like who are very clearly going to drink, I will hold. No, I'm not. And I think it was, you and I had conversations like through the end of my senior year. And I think something you said that like really stuck with me of just like people's perception is going to be their reality. So while I might not be drinking, while you might not be drinking, people are going to see you there and they're like, oh, isn't that the person that like, doesn't she go to the well? Doesn't he go to the well? Isn't he like on student leadership? Or like, they'll know some things about you. Like you usually go to school with these people and they're like, oh, but they're at this party. And they're not going to like, nobody's going to say to them, yeah, but they weren't drinking. Like people are going to be like, oh, they were at a party. So by default, they were probably drinking. They were probably doing whatever was there.
Yeah.
Or even if they don't assume that, they're like, they approve of.
Yeah.
actions.
That can definitely be a stamp of approval of like, whether it's like newer people in their faith or people who don't know Christ at all. They're like, oh, this person, like they call themselves a Christian and they're partying. So like, that must be okay. Like that's like one and the same. So it's fine. So like what I'm doing is fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I mean, I don't think we realize like how much we're influencing people, like, and how much people are looking at us. If we say that we're a Christian, it's like, wow, look at all those things like I'm representing, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's really interesting. I have a lot of students who tell me, Brynn, I think you mentioned it too, where it's like, well, we get where it's like, well, like, but like Jesus, he like ate with the sinners. So like, I'm just being Jesus incarnate here and I get to sit and eat with the sinners too. And I thought you had a good point. Well, like, yeah, but like when Jesus called the tax collectors, he wasn't tax collecting money with the tax collectors.
Yeah.
He like called them to a higher standard.
He wasn't taking videos of the tax collectors and posting it on his private story.
Yeah, exactly. And so like, I think,
Oh, you crazy.
no, that's so true. He wasn't, he wasn't playing just all those drinking games with them either,
Yeah.
And so I think like, I think the biggest thing that we have to realize is like, even for me, it was just like, well, like, is my witness better at the party, or is my witness better by saying, no, I'm not going to partake in that?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. What's actually you living a life that's not understandable to do without Christ?
Yeah. Because in that moment, I'm denying myself, you know,
Yeah.
I'm choosing that God's way is better. So I'm going to be like, I'm not going to be a part of that. But I think the harder part for me is when then my gears get stuck, Brynn, is then like, well, then are you saying that then therefore, like, I have to disassociate from these people? Like, these people are bad.
Yeah.
And I can't hang out with them anymore. Because those are friendships too. Like, I have friends who are unbelievers at that time. You know? I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you guys say about that?
Well, I think that's what was really hard for me was I was like, I knew if I'm not in these environments, me and these people aren't friends.
Yeah.
And I remember us having really sweet, hard conversations about stuff like this, where it's like, okay, here's the part where like, we have to be really honest with ourselves of like, you can, if they invite you to go to a party and you care about this friendship, like, hey, I don't want to lose that relationship. We aren't called to just break off relationships because we don't believe the same thing, right?
Yeah.
But that like question back of like, hey, no, I'm not going to go to the party with you like on Saturday night, but could we get lunch Sunday afternoon? Like, or
absolutely.
could we like go get dinner before you go out or something like that?
Yeah.
And I think that's the hard part where we're putting ourselves out there for like rejection to happen because they might say no. But we're there. But was that hard for you?
Yeah, I do very clearly remember the conversations we would have of like just having to say like, no, I'm not going to go, but like, let's do something else. But then also wrestling with the hard reality of like a lot of those friends aren't going to say yes to that. Because a lot of them, it's like, we're only friends in this context of like, yeah, let's go party. But then just kind of acknowledging like I had to kind of zoom out for a second and be like, okay, again, if my ultimate goal is to be following the calling of Christ that he's put on my life, the people who I'm surrounding myself with are like ultimately like one of the most important things, kind of like we were talking about, like that closest community to you. And these people who I'm like, I am trying to be a light to, and I do still really care about, like they aren't going to be that for me. Like that was just that reality of like, man, and that sucks. Cause like you love those people, like you do spend most of your time with them. You did spend most of your time with them, whatever the case was. So just trying to be like, okay, God, I trust, like I'm putting this in your hands. I know you're gonna, like you have my best interest at heart. If this is what you're calling me to do, I'm gonna follow that, even though this seems really scary and I don't really want to, but I will, because I can trust that you have a better plan than what I'm thinking. Yeah,
you mentioned something, Gabi, I thought was really interesting. I think like sometimes for a lot of our students, what they get stuck on, it's like, well, that is my community. And then you say, well, like we need to find like good community, a better community. I'm just wondering, even in maybe in both of your own like walks, like how did you be like, okay, like that was my community. How do I now find this better community that's honestly more encouraging or uplifting? Like, how did you do that? You know, because that's honestly, I that would keep me in the party scene.
Yeah,
you know,
that did keep me in the party scene for a long time.
Yeah, I would say I think the hardest part of it was finding new community and not comparing the relationships of new community to who, like how comfortable I felt with what I thought was my community. Like I remember a lot of seasons where I was just like, I am more myself with the people I used to hang out with than who I'm with now. Or like we did have more fun or things like that. Yeah. But I remember like a really like close mentor of mine being like, you are comparing your relationships with people that you were friends with for years to people who you're just now meeting. And that's not fair. Like relationships are built over time. And I think you're going to see them show up in ways that your other friends never did, but that's uncomfortable for you. And so entering into new relationships with like trying to have just a fresh start frame of mind and not comparing it to the comfort that you might have used to felt. And then I think we see the Lord move in those ways. We're like, now I'm like, man, I'm so glad that this is my community. Like you guys push me to be better. Like, and now I'm like, yeah, you guys are my people and I feel that comfort with you, but that takes time to build.
Yeah. A lot of this conversation, like we've had a lot of this conversation just as I was going through it. I feel like in all honesty, I had to go through like a hard season of loneliness of just being like, the Lord kind of like, I prayed for this and I asked for like, God, take these things that are not glorifying to you, take them out of my life, God. It's not in my hands. Like I can't do it. So please just. And when he did, I was like, man, I am so lonely. Like this sucks. But just constantly like leaning on the few people who we did have in my life, whether it was like my mentors or like one of my closer friends, just like the people who I'm like, okay, you are pushing me towards Christ, the people who are farther steps ahead of me in their walk with the Lord. Like, okay, you went through something similar. How did you do that? How did you get through this? And then very much like you said, Brynn, like when you do find some people, just being so open to be like, okay, this is going to be different, but just because it's different doesn't mean it's bad or doesn't mean it's not good. It's just different. And now it's like the community that I have, I literally just these past 2 days have just been talking so much to them about it. Like, I am so thankful for you guys. I've never been more myself than when I'm around you guys. And like you said, like you push me towards Christ every day. And like, I never have to walk away from those instances, like hanging out with them and feel convicted, feel guilty, feel drained. Like I don't have to do any of that. Whereas when I was in the party scene, I'd leave from a party and I'm like, wow, I don't feel the best right now. If I was even like conscious enough to acknowledge how I was feeling.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you're experiencing like when Jesus says like, here's like life abundantly, or here's what freedom in Christ looks like. It sounds like that's what you guys are describing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, and I think the sweet part, like looking back, reflecting is like in the seasons of loneliness, in the moment are so hard. I think at least for myself, I won't put words to what you felt, but for me, like looking back, I'm like, those are some of the sweetest times with the Lord, like really growing me, where I'm like, now I'm so grateful for that season where it was like, I have to fully rely on you. And like that you are going to carry me through, Lord, in this season. And he did provide people. He calls us into community. And so we have to enter into that. But looking back, that's such a sweet season. So if you're in the midst of that right now, I think an encouragement is like the Lord's with you and he's refining you in these moments. And subtle plug, if you are looking for a new community and don't know where to start, you should listen to How to Find Your Ride or Die episode on the Well StudentCast from last year.
That's
but
a good one.
Yeah, I don't know.
I just have a quick question. I got ridiculed a lot for like not, like once I was just like, this is not what I'm going to do. And I felt like I almost got like the cost of saying no, like hurt me more than the cost of me saying yes. Like, how did you guys navigate that? Because like, I know, I can even think of like some of my own like, some of my own students who are like, it sucks to stand up for Jesus. It'd be so much easier for me just to go back to what the life was. Do you have any encouragement for people who are like, I'm being literally teased and like bullied and like honestly like cold shouldered and to the point where no one invites me anywhere?
Yeah. I think just one thing to acknowledge, that is hard.
Yeah.
And that does suck. Like that's so valid. That does suck.
Yeah.
So there's just that affirmation.
Yeah. I think this is gonna be a weird perspective. I think I did that to friends my senior year because I was so ashamed of my own actions. Like, and I literally remember one of my like really good friends my senior year who had partied with us. She started going back to youth group and she went to winter retreat, and I like made fun of the winter retreat high so much. Like I was like, that's so lame. Like, oh my gosh. And like didn't want to talk to her or whatever. And it came out that way. But on the inside, I was just like, there was so much shame because I was like, I know that's right. And like, you are putting a mirror up to me of like what I'm doing. And I don't want to acknowledge like what I'm doing right now. And so if you're feeling that, I'm not excusing it. Like it's awful. Like I've had to make amends for that and it's just tough. But if you are experiencing that, I think trying to remove their actions from your own identity and like their actual feelings towards you. And it might just be a reflection of like, they aren't ready to see what they're doing right now. And you are a reminder of that to them.
That's fair.
And then also I just think like, I was going to ask you this because I think sometimes, at least I felt this before I'd start partying, where I was like, all the adults in church are like, I partied and then I found the Lord. And so they still got to have fun and then they found the Lord. But like, I want to like emphasize the fact that like, that isn't because we just like got this out of our system and then we're able to do it. There's like a lot still for me that I have to process through, a lot of like choices I made that had significant consequences for the way I've like viewed myself, my other relationships, and like things that I just still have to be processing today that caused a lot of hurt, either that I caused or that other people caused to me in those environments. And so you not doing that and experiencing like this kind of, like bullying or just like cold shoulder and isolation, it is worth it in the sense of like, that's hard. The Lord's refining you through that. But the party scene isn't going to make those things better.
No.
It's just going to add different problems. And so for you, like, as someone who didn't have this, like, I had these wild years and then I like, came to know the Lord, how sweet has that been for you?
I'll be honest, it's been really, I think the Lord's been kind by being like, you're allergic. So I was like, I always had an out, you know? And so like, it was never like so much of a thing where it's like, I made all these like terrible decisions in the parties, but then it was really kind for me because then now I like get to walk with my friends and be like, yeah, like I understand your longing and how you walk through that. And can I show you that like, it is possible. It is possible to have a good community. It's possible to like get completely bullied and yet still have good community and stand strong with that. I also like, this is not bragging. This is all the Lord. I think if I wasn't allergic, I think I would have made terrible decisions. But like, I don't have to go back and be like, here's the damages or like the costs and consequences of my actions. I have other costs and consequences of my other sins, right? But like, we're talking specifically about partying and that. I don't have to. And I remember I had sweeter conversations from people who didn't believe in Jesus or those who were walking with the faith being like, why don't you? Like, why don't you go to these parties? Or like, what is it? What's the hope that you have that for some reason I'm trying to find at parties? And so,
man, that's good.
One other thing too, like both to your question a little bit earlier and then even what you were just saying now of like, when students feel or like just anybody feels like that temptation of like, it would just be easier to go back. It would just be easier than rather than having to really like stand up for Jesus. I feel like sin will always overpromise and then like just wildly underdeliver. So it's like, we even think like there's that longing of like, oh, like I want to go have these high school, college years, whatever. And it's like the world is promising you all of these things just to end up with you being hurt, just to end up with you having to go do damage control or having to walk through a really painful process like after the fact or like deal with whatever happened. So that was just something.
If that was the case, then Ka'eo did not have the college years and things that the world promised. And he is still alive and happy.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
And it's like, what do you value more? Like, and you think, I think back to like when I was at parties, I'm like, I would much rather the joy from like following the Lord and like the joy I get with like my friends, like my actual true community, I would much rather that experience than going and like having the most shallow interactions and just being like not even fully present. Like this one's way more fun. And it's all because the Lord is present. Well, like the Lord is the focus there.
Yeah. That's so good. Well, this has been awesome. And Gabby, thank you for sharing vulnerably. And I don't know, it's a really sweet experience to get to hear just your wisdom in this. And Ka'eo, thanks for being here.
For
again,
sure.
as always. And thank you myself for being here.
Thank you, Brynn.
Thanks, Brynn.
We will, if you like this, please share it with your friends.
Yes.
Don't passive aggressively send it to the people who party. And be
I definitely did those, but don't do what I did.
just, I don't know, be wise, discern what your motives are. But share with a friend and leave us a review, subscribe, and all the things. And we will see you in 2 weeks.
Yes.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Well StudentCast. As always, don't forget to subscribe and tell your friends about us. For more information about the Well Student Ministries, visit thewellcommunities.org/students.